Today, let us start the osteology part of it. You know, when you are shown the bones, you can be asked anything about the anatomy of the bone or fractures of the bone. So, bones are a very powerful weapon of examining a student. So, let us start with scapula. I know you love scapula because all of you pick scapula up in your exams. But here is it. Draw the scapula with me. Take a pen, take a pencil and try to draw it and remember it as you draw. So here is the glenoid cavity. Superior to the glenoid cavity is the supraglenoid tubercle and inferior to it the infraglenoid tubercle. If you see the glenoid cavity, it is a pear-shaped cavity. If you face the glenoid cavity, you will find that it's a pear-shaped cavity. Here is the supraglenoid tubercle, here is the infraglenoid tubercle. The supraglenoid tubercle is intracapsular but extrasynovial, and the infraglenoid tubercle is extracapsular. So here is the attachment of the capsule. You see it's a pear-shaped cavity, glenoid cavity, and it's concave in front and convex behind. Inside the capsule, you find in the anterior capsule there are three thickenings: the superior, inferior, intermediate, and inferior glenohumeral ligaments. And inside this you find that there is a cartilaginous projection which increases the depth of the glenoid cavity, which is called as the glenoid labrum. Now, so after this glenoid cavity, we would place the head of the humerus. It articulates with the head of the humerus. Here is the greater tuberosity, and here is the shaft of the humerus. Here will be the bicipital groove, and on this side will be the lesser tuberosity. So now, if we want to show you the glenoid labrum, here will be the projections of the glenoid labrum. Then you will find the supraglenoid tubercle, from which arises the long head of biceps, and it comes down the bicipital groove like this. The long head of biceps. Outside it, so it's intracapsular. Outside it is the capsule. So the capsule is here, and the inferior part of the capsule is basically attached to the anatomical neck, but not in the inferior portion where it forms the lax part of the capsule. And the anterior capsule, I told you, is strengthened by glenohumeral ligaments, the superior, the intermediate, and the inferior one. So this lax part of the capsule would provide for abduction. After understanding the glenoid cavity and the supraglenoid tubercle, we would go to the coracoid process, which is a finger type of process. And this finger type of process points, it's a process like this, which points anteriorly and externally. So here is the glenoid, supraglenoid tubercle, and here is the coracoid process. Just medial to the coracoid process, you find the suprascapular notch. So this is pointing anteriorly and externally, and just above this complex, you would find that there is a acromion process here. So this is the acromion process, and you have the clavicle joining the acromioclavicular joint. On the inferior surface you have a line which is parallel to this direction of the coracoid process. This line on the posterior border has a conoid tubercle, and this line is called as trapezoid line. Now, by these words anterior and external, you would remember that it's directed anterior and externally, and the coracoid process and this line is connected by a ligament which is the trapezoid ligament. Trapezoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament, and the posteriormost part you have the conoid ligament. So conoid and trapezoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament. But besides this very special arrangement which prevents this clavicle from dislocating upwards at the acromioclavicular joint, because it holds the clavicle down with the weight of the scapula and with the weight of the limb. So it's a weight transmitting ligament, very, very important weight transmitting ligament. So if there is a fracture of the clavicle at this point, this portion is free to go up and this portion is free to go down. But the attachments of the coracoid process are remembered as 3 muscles and 3 ligaments. The 3 muscles are 2 going towards the arm, the coracobrachialis. This is the coracobrachialis. And the short head of biceps. So the short head of biceps and long head of biceps form the 2 heads of the biceps brachii, which goes down and gets inserted into the radial tuberosity and sends a bicipital aponeurosis into the deep fascia of the forearm, which covers the brachial artery and the median nerve. So in Walkman's ischemic acute ischemia, where these vessels and nerves are pressed, you need to divide the bicipital aponeurosis. So this is about the biceps muscle. So the 3 muscles, coracobrachialis, biceps brachii, and one going towards the chest, that is the pectoralis minor. Now, after the conoid tubercle, this trapezoid line continues as the inferior border of the clavicle. And this inferior border of the clavicle is connected with the upper border of the pectoralis minor by a fascia which is called as clavipectoral fascia. 4 structures pierce this clavipectoral fascia: the lateral pectoral nerve, the thoracoacromion artery, the cephalic vein, and lymphatics coming from the breast, the axillary tail of Spence. The breast has, if this is the breast, it has got an axillary tail of Spence. This is the axillary tail of Spence. So lymphatic from the axillary tail of Spence pierces the clavipectoral fascia and goes into the axillary lymph nodes. So this is the route of spread of CA breast. So lateral pectoral nerve, thoracoacromion artery, cephalic vein and lymphatics from the breast, from the axillary tail of Spence pierce the clavipectoral fascia. So after understanding this much of anatomy of the coracoid process, you have to understand that there are 3 ligaments also. I have named the coracoclavicular ligament, which has got the trapezoid and the conoid part. Then there is coracoacromial ligament, coracoid to acromion. And finally the coracohumeral ligament. So remember, easy, 3 muscles: coracobrachialis, short head of biceps brachii, pectoralis minor, 3 ligaments: coracoclavicular ligament, which has got a trapezoid and a conoid part, the coracoacromial ligament, and the coracohumeral ligament. So this much of anatomy of the glenoid and the coracoid has been covered. Now we move on to the rest of the anatomy of the scapula. So this was the glenoid, this was the supraglenoid tubercle. Here you had the coracoid, and we move on to the transverse scapular, to the suprascapular notch. Covering the suprascapular notch here is the transverse scapular ligament, under which passes the suprascapular nerve and above the suprascapular artery. If you want to remember this, then remember that artery needs space to expand, therefore it passes above the transverse scapular ligament. Then you have the superior border of the scapula, nothing attached on this. Then you have the medial border, and then you have the lateral border. The medial border is divided into 3 parts. The levator scapulae is attached, the superior most muscle, and this connects it to the spine. And sometimes this levator scapulae becomes bony or fibrous, and then it is called as the omovertebral bar. And if the levator scapulae of both sides is fibrous in a child, then the scapula would fail to descend. So if you are looking at the head from behind and these are the shoulders, then the hairline will become low, the neck will become short, and the scapula would both be high. And these are the features of Klippel-Feil syndrome. So this is about the applied anatomy of the levator scapulae. Then you have the rhomboidus minor and the rhomboidus major. For understanding the attachments on the lateral border, we have said that there will be the glenoid labrum, then there will be the long head of biceps, and then there will be the capsule on the supraglenoid tubercle lesion. Inferiorly, you have the inferior part of the glenoidal labrum, and we will have to again place the head of the humerus and put the greater tuberosity and the shaft and put the bicipital groove here and the lesser tuberosity. And then we will have to attach this capsule and the lax part of the capsule and attached to the lesser tuberosity and coming from the anterior surface of the scapula, you have a muscle which is called as the subscapularis. Alright, then this is the bicipital groove. It has got a lateral lip and a medial lip. And on this bicipital groove, in the lower part, not up till the capsule, on the lower part is attached the lady between two majors, the pectoralis major on the lateral side, the teres major on the medial side, and you find that there is a muscle which winds around the teres major and gets attached in between. So there is a lady between two majors, and this signifies this turn of the muscle or latissimus dorsi. So there is a lady between pectoralis major and teres major. Above the teres major, going behind the lax part of the capsule and getting attached to the greater tuberosity is the teres minor. So here you have the teres minor. And I have said on the greater tuberosity is attached the T, the I and the S, the SIT structures. That means the supraspinatus, the infraspinatus and teres minor. So you see teres minor goes behind the head and therefore it's an external rotator, and teres major goes in front of the head, in front of the humerus, so it's a internal rotator. Now if we place from the infraglenoid tubercle the triceps muscle, triceps tendon, long head of triceps, then you would find that you have four spaces. You have three spaces: the quadrangular space, the medial triangular space, and the lateral triangular space. The quadrangular space above is bounded by the lax part of the capsule sandwiched between subscapularis and teres minor. On the medial side you have the long head of triceps. On the inferior side you have the teres major and the latissimus dorsi, and on the lateral side you have the surgical neck of the humerus. So you have quadrangular space, upper lax part of capsule sandwiched between subscapularis and teres minor, lower teres major, medial long head of triceps, and lateral surgical neck of humerus. Here you will have the axillary artery. Behind the axillary artery you will have the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. Alright, behind. From the posterior cord of the brachial plexus arises the axillary nerve, which passes through the quadrangular space, and the posterior circumflex humeral artery. These are the two structures that pass through the quadrangular space. The axillary nerve supplies the teres minor and the deltoid, which is coming from the acromion and getting attached to the deltoid tuberosity. So it winds round the surgical neck of humerus and supplies the teres minor and the deltoid. The posterior cord continues as the radial nerve, which passes through the lateral triangular space, and it is of course accompanied by another artery branch from the axillary artery, which is the profunda brachii. So the lateral triangular space, which is bounded by the teres major and latissimus dorsi above, shaft of humerus and long head of triceps, passes the radial nerve and the profunda brachii artery. So these are the attachments of the lateral border, the teres major, the teres minor. Another branch of the artery, the circumflex scapular, winds round the lateral border, piercing the teres minor. And on the medial side, there is the transverse cervical artery, superficial and deep branch, which is a branch of the subclavian. So, three arteries anastomose around the scapula: the transverse cervical, the suprascapular, and circumflex scapular. Alright, so this is the anastomosis around the scapula, and around the upper end of the humerus you have the arc formed by the anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery, which anastomose with the profunda brachii artery. So the anastomosis around the shoulder consists of anterior, posterior, circumflex, humeral, and a ascending branch of profunda brachii. Then we will move on to the posterior border, another muscle which is attached to the medial part of the anterior part of the medial border of scapula, and this muscle is the serratus anterior. We will see how this muscle goes in the next paper. If you look at the scapula from above, you will look at a bone like this with the anterior surface, with the medial border, and the glenoid cavity, which is the lateral border. And here will be the rib. And from the medial side arises these are the rhomboidus major, minor, and levator scapulae coming and getting attached from the spine of the vertebra to the medial border. And you find that the serratus anterior rises like this and goes and gets attached to the rib. So this serratus anterior forms the medial boundary of the axilla. Then we have the labrum here. We have the anterior capsule here, strengthened by the three glenohumeral ligaments. We have the head of the humerus here. We have the lesser tuberosity. Then we have the bicipital groove, and we have the greater tuberosity. And here is this part of the capsule, the posterior part of the capsule. So arising from here, you have the subscapularis muscle, which goes and gets attached to the lesser tuberosity. Here you have the biceps longus tendon and the capsule forming the transverse bicipital ligament. And here you have the greater tuberosity, which gives attachment to the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor. So just to demonstrate, we give you an example of the supraspinatus muscle being behind the scapula. So this is the superior view of the scapula, which shows you the serratus anterior, the levator scapulae, rhomboidus minor, rhomboidus major group, and the supraspinatus. So now why the supraspinatus and infraspinatus? So what I'll show you in the next diagram is the posterior view of the scapula. So here is the medial boundary, and here is the superior border. Here is the transverse scapular notch. Here is the coracoid process going anteriorly and externally. The supraglenoid tubercle, the infraglenoid tubercle, and the lateral border. Here you have the head of the humerus, the greater tuberosity. You don't see the lesser tuberosity from behind. Here you have the glenoid labrum. Here you have the capsule, the lax part of it. And you find that the posterior surface of the scapula is divided by a spine of the scapula, which goes and converts into the acromion process. So this spine is a shelf-like projection from the posterior surface, and it has got a notch. It divides the posterior surface into a supraspinatus region and an infraspinatus region, and the supraspinatus and infraspinatus region communicate between the spine and the glenoid, which is called as the spinoglenoid notch. So you have the supraspinatus here, you have the infraspinatus here. Supraspinatus comes and gets inserted like this, and the infraspinatus below it. And of course you find that the teres minor is the lowermost muscle attached here, and from the infraglenoid tubercle you have the long head of triceps, and of course from here you have the teres major going to get attached and to the anterior surface, medial lip of the anterior surface of the bicipital groove, medial lip of the bicipital groove, which is anterior to the humerus. And you find that this is the lateral triangular space. The profunda brachii and the radial nerve are emerging from this and lying in a groove on the posterior surface of the humerus. This groove is called as the radial groove. On the lateral side of it is the lateral head of the triceps, and below and medial is the medial head of the triceps. So triceps has got three heads: the long head, the lateral head, and the medial head. Between the lateral and medial head you have the radial artery and the profunda brachii artery. You have the latissimus dorsi winding around the lower border of the teres major, going to get inserted as the lady between two majors. Here you have the levator scapulae, the rhomboidus minor, and the rhomboidus major, three muscles. And now you must understand the acromion articulates with the clavicle, forming the acromioclavicular joint. So there is a tuberosity on the inferior border of the spine of scapula, which is called as the deltoid tuberosity. From the inferior border of the spine of scapula, going on to its superior border, medial border of acromion, and the posterior border of medial 1/3 of the clavicle is a muscle which is called as the trapezius muscle, coming from the spine. So see, the trapezius lowers the inferior border, the spine of the scapula, medial to the deltoid tubercle, and the upper part, lateral part of the trapezius lifts it up, and therefore these are the muscles which, along with serratus anterior, the trapezius rotates the scapula. It rotates the scapula on this axis, which is at the deltoid tubercle, and passing right up to the sternoclavicular joint. So the movement of rotation of scapula occurs at the sternoclavicular joint. Then from the deltoid tuberosity, the inferior border, lateral part of the inferior border and lateral border of the clavicle, and then the anterior 1/3, lateral 1/3 of the anterior border of the clavicle, you have the deltoid muscle which goes and gets inserted into the deltoid tuberosity. So this finishes the scapula, and I hope you will master it as soon as you see it forever, so that you do not have to remember it again and again. Because if you want to do anything with the shoulder or the scapula, you will have to know this anatomy in your later years as surgeons or physicians. But in the exam which is imminent, you will have to face an examiner who shows you the scapula bone. Thank you.